to them. So, to show them the kind of welcome that only gallons can give, we're going to go just a couple notches above where we were just now. You think we can do that? I'm sorry, it was a little too subdued. You think we can bring them out here, y'all? So, ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure. Welcome to the stage, Levar, Burton, and Brent.
Appreciate you.
Appreciate you both being here.
Thank you.
We've got old teammate myself right over here and right over here. I'm going to kick things off with a couple of questions of my own, and then want to turn it over to you, the fans, for the reason that we're here. Now, gentlemen, I don't want to touch on the sore subject, but Sherlock Holmes and Watson in space, there is some dispute as to whose idea this was, and I think it's better for us to just air this out now.
On further review, the original genesis of the idea of Holmes and Watson in space did in fact, and indeed, come from Brent's father.
In fact, that's not true. No, seriously, I had no idea.
No?
When the script for we did this episode called Elementary Near Data. I didn't write it, but we did this episode, and it just appeared, like all the scripts did when they pass out the scripts. And I got the script and opened it up, Elementary Near Data. I said, because I'm a huge Sherlock Holmes fan, and I thought, what's this going to be? I opened it up, and I'm playing Sherlock Holmes. And I was like, this is great. And I said, who's playing Watson? It's got to be Riker. Oh.
Were you disappointed?
No, I'm only kidding. I said, Geordi's got to be playing Watson, and indeed he was. And the rest is history.
I have to say you're one of the best Sherlocks I've ever seen.
And may I say, you're one of the best Watsons I've ever seen. I mean, it goes like this for me. You?
Yeah.
Nigel Bruce?
Ooh. Really?
Yeah. You know who was a great Watson? Robert Duvall.
No.
Yes.
In the 7% solution.
He was fantastic.
Directed by Nicholas Moore.
Correct? Yes.
Moises.
Wow. That's the only thing I'm here to do.
You're not just a pretty face.
There are people here.
You know what? He's not even a pretty face.
Okay, but these are facts people are used to.
Exactly. Yeah. Duvall, a great Watson. Yeah. And British. Believe it or not, yeah. Totally believable. He was fantastic.
Underrated.
Yeah, obviously. What else you got?
Well, speaking of literature,
Yeah.
one of the things that I found myself wondering when podcasts became a thing was, will I ever get what I really want, which is LeVar Burton on demand reading to me in my ears?
Any LeVar Burton Reads listeners in the house?
Tell us about the genesis of LeVar Burton Reads.
Hey, I like reading a lot.
When we were doing Elementary Near Data, he kept reading while we were doing this show, and I kept saying, stop, we're trying to act
In
here.
fact, I think that the genesis, the kernel of truth that formed the idea for LeVar Burton Reads came from Brent's father.
Yes, I suggested one day, I said, hey, LeVar, have you ever thought about reading? and he went, reading! As I said, you had this show, reading. reading Rainbow. Right? I said, you know nothing about rainbows. Why don't you read? And
the rest is history.
amazing.
When this spun up, were there things in particular that you very much wanted to read? What was it like putting together the priorities of what was going on your feed?
For me, the joy is leaning heavily into science and speculative fiction, my favorite genre of literature and read for pleasure. And then being able to introduce the audience to marginalized writers' voices in the realm that they might not have encountered before or otherwise heard of. And I get a big kick out of that, great pleasure, introducing them to new authors, new voices.
An existing voice, an existing author,
Well,
has joined us on stage. His name is Brent. He's not just a pretty face.
He is a pretty face and a published author.
The book is called Fan Fiction.
Right. How many of you have read fan fiction? Okay, 6. All right.
We'll start there.
When, yeah,
And we'll build.
when we were in Orlando, it was only 3.
People got word that it was out, and now they don't.
How many people have heard that I wrote a book called Fan Fiction?
Maybe you can listen to the amazing audiobook.
Okay, 12. But you know, I just want to say that the original impulse for me to write this book, believe it or not, came from Levar Burton.
Just to be able to inspire one another's careers the way we have.
Yeah.
It's really an honor for me.
Right. You know, he said to me, I don't know if you know this, but I like to read. And he said, why don't you write something I can read? And I did.
And sure enough, I think he's your first castmate who appeared in the pages of Fan Fiction.
He is. Chapter 1, Levar Burton.
Out there.
Yeah.
Hey, Brent, where can the folks get a copy of fan fiction?
Well, I just happen to have. Now, I'll tell you where you can get it on this little site called Amazon. Books called Fan Fiction. If you like to read, and if you don't like to read and you just like to listen, you can go to Audible. And I narrated the book and had the wonderful good luck to have my friends, Levar and Patrick and Jonathan and Gates and Marina and Dorn, they all read their own parts of the book, and it's a really fun listen. It's produced really well.
You know what I love most about fan fiction?
What?
I mean, aside from the parts that I'm in, I like the fact that you call it a memoir.
Yes,
I think it's very clever. It's a nice play on words there.
a memoir is what it is, because there's a little bit of memoir, there's a little bit of, it's a thriller, it's also a black comedy, it's also fiction, it's also, some of it's not fiction, it's a little bit of everything.
It is.
You know?
It's a book for all people.
It is. It really is. What other books are for all people?
Oh,
The Bible.
the Bible is one.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I don't think it's better than that.
No, I'm going to say
It's good.
Yeah.
It's more like the Bible, fan fiction. What's the Great Gatsby?
Oh,
That's right.
And then right underneath that, The Secret, or something like that. To praise the book just a little bit more, because I've got to earn that check that I'm getting for payola later. One of the things that I really find the most fascinating about it is the way that you've interweaved. Well, we don't know what precisely is fiction and what precisely is fact, and there's a great deal of enjoyment to be had in not knowing.
I felt that would be the case. I hoped that would be the case. That's why I leave it up to your imagination to try to figure out what really happened and what didn't happen.
I have to say, having read the book and lived at least part of it, oftentimes the things that are most outrageous are the things that actually did happen.
That's right. Yeah, you'll read certain parts of it and you go, okay, this has got to be fiction. that's not fiction. That's the real stuff.
That truly is stranger than fiction. Well, I want to ask you guys one more thing before we turn it over to the audience. It's been a while since conventions have been back in full force. They recently, we've had attendance limits lifted and so on, and we have, I think it was 60, 70,000 people here this weekend, I've been told. You've both been doing conventions for quite some time, but I wonder if there is a different flavor, a different vibrancy to the stories that people are coming up to your tables and talking to you about, the experience of being out there and receiving the love from the fans that you couldn't have received while you were making Star Trek or Reading Rainbow or so many of the projects that you worked on.
No.
Okay.
No, of course. I mean, we've done conventions all over the United States, and we've done some conventions in Europe. But I always look forward to coming back to Dallas, because that's where the real people are.
Can I get an EI?
When you're originally from Houston, yes.
I'm a Texan, and I want you to know something, that I don't really speak this, but I talk like this. And whenever I get home, it comes right back to me. And I just love you people.
Look, there are probably just as many people in this Texas audience that love you from Mama's Family as they do Star Trek.
Well, I would hope so, but even more so for that quarter.
Wheeler.
Wheeler.
Bring back Bob Wheeler.
Yeah.
We're going to start the campaign now.
Boys, I'd just like to ask Levar one thing before we move to the audience, if you don't mind.
You're in charge.
What was it you said last week? You were on The View.
Yes.
And you said something about books and about banning of books.
Yes.
What was that?
It's a read band books.
Read banned books.
Yeah! That's where the good stuff is, y'all.
That's where the good stuff is.
If they don't want you to read it, there's a reason why.
Yeah.
Read band books.
And, the next thing you know, I'm just waiting for fan fiction to be banned.
Could be the best thing to ever happen to your book.
Exactly. That or like all these people buy it. That would be good.
That would be wonderful.
Well, everybody look under your chairs. There's nothing there. So.
Wow, I wish I had thought of that. Yeah.
No, this joke I could have told all day. We're going to start right over here.
Hello, my name is Jordan, and I've been a fan my whole life. I'm sure you hear that all the time. But you guys, no matter what, have been my favorite characters. I mean, just... So, I was wondering if I could say two things. Well,
Yes.
Go for it.
Several years ago, I met you two, and I pulled out something to get signed from Levar, Burton, and I was so nervous, I just kind of messed it up and screwed it. And you said that, go ahead and take another thing and autograph it for him. And I was, and Levar, you said, yeah, but if you mess this autograph up, I'll kick your ass. And I looked at you and I said, Levar, I'd pay you to kick my ass.
Happens to me all the time.
What do you think is probably the most influential thing that you have ever done, like Reading Rainbow or Star Trek?
Or Roots.
Roots. It wasn't you. Okay, yeah.
I'm pretty sure he was at Roots.
I'm pretty sure it's in the
here.
I honestly feel that my work on Reading Rainbow is probably the most important work I should ever do.
I feel that way about Mama's family.
Afternoon, gentlemen. I'm Jake.
What would you pay, by the way, for him to kick your ass? If it's the right amount, he'll do it right in front of these people.
Well, he's a lot richer than I am. So,
A lot of
you
people
know, I
are paid to
really
be kicked
don't
around.
know. Honest to God, I do not know. 500. That's about all I have.
Sir, you cannot afford me.
Afternoon, gentlemen. I'm Jacob, massive fan. Question apiece for you, for Mr. Burton. Speaking of Reading Rainbow, I know when they pulled the funding the first time at PBS, they had stated it was more important to move towards teaching reading than it was teaching the enjoyment of it. Did anyone ever think to make the case that the enjoyment of reading is important to get to that second step? Because without enjoying it, why would they bother?
Sir, we were talking to members of Congress.
Yeah.
A lot of them are gone for reading their own bills.
And secondarily, for Mr. Spiner, let's talk about your problematic Texan accent. I'm just kidding.
What in the world are you talking about?
I reckon.
All right.
So, for you, during Measure of a Man, I had read that Gene Roddenberry almost did not want to go with that storyline because he believed there was no lawyers in the future. He put that idea in his head.
Well, I know the episode was written by a woman named Melinda Snodgrass, who is a fantastic writer, because that's one of the best scripts we did in 7 years.
She had worked on the original series.
Did she?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
No, maybe not.
I don't know.
No, that was DC Fontana.
But that's right.
Right.
But Melinda wrote that. She wrote several other episodes, but that was she just knocked it out of the park with that one. But quick aside on that particular episode. Recently, they were doing a Star Trek thing at a museum in Los Angeles, and a guy called me or wrote to me who was doing the panels for everything. They were screening episodes and then doing panels afterwards. And he said, "I'm writing you to ask you if you'll come to the museum when we show Measure of a Man." Because I know that I've read that happens to be one of your favorite episodes. And I wrote back and I said, I'm happy to come, but to be honest, I've never seen it. And so I said, can I come early and watch it with the rest of the fans? And so I did, and I watched it, and I thought, this is good. Particularly that gold guy. I love that guy. Anyway, yeah.
We're glad you joined us in the fandom.
Thank you, me too.
Thank you, gentlemen.
All righty, all the best.
If I can throw a little follow-up, there's an extended version of Measure of a Man that came out with a Blu-ray restoration of TNG.
Where they killed me at the end of it?
Did you watch it? Did you look at it? Did you?
No, are you serious?
Yeah, there's an extended version of the episode.
I'm finding out about this for the first time.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'll loan it to you.
Is there any stuff in it they should have kept in it?
I think what Eric, I mean, it's legendary for a reason. And
Yeah.
I think it's interesting to see the alternate producer cut that came
Okay.
for Final Year.
Well, I'll have to check that out.
We'll be screening it tonight.
Okay. I'll be doing the panel afterwards.
First, I want to say thank you both. From the Star Trek was one of the few shows I could watch as a 7-year-old. My dad would let me watch. So thank you both for telling these amazing stories, which still are very relevant to today. And then another thank you, Mr. Burton. I grew up as a big reader. I think part of that was because of Reading Rainbow. And now, as a reading teacher, I want to thank you for your continued support in literacy and telling people that reading is important. The average American reads on a 6th grade reading level, and comparing that to the rest of the world is really sad. So I want to thank you for your continued support in pushing literacy and the importance of reading, because I work with junior high kids, and most of them are 2 to 3 grades below where they need to be. And it is a struggle because they don't like to read, so I tell them, find a book that you want to read. I don't care what level it's on. It can be a comic book. I don't care. I want you to first learn to love to read, and then we'll go from there. So I just want to say thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
You know, if there's students reading on a 6th grade reading level, they may want to start with my book.
Copies will be available.
This is a question for Brent. So, when you were first cast as Data, was there ever a bad reaction to the makeup? Because at TNG, the budget was not as good as it should have been. Well, first season.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what. First of all, I didn't know I was going to be made up like that. Gene Roddenberry said to me, do you mind if we alter your appearance? And I was thinking, it's going to be ears or something, you know? And that's fine. And then I did 15 or so makeup tests where I was every color imaginable. And they finally settled on gold, which I don't know what your TVs look like, but it usually projected as either white or green. And in fact, it was gold. But they wisely sent me to a facialist every other Saturday for 7 years while we were doing the series. Every other Saturday I would have a really clinical, serious facial to get the gold out of my skin because they didn't want me breaking out. And suddenly Data's looking like a teenager. And, so they took care of that.
He's 102. Look at that man's skin.
Did it ever make you sick, or was it just...
It never made me sick that I know of. I may find out one day that it made me sick. Yeah.
Well, way to break things down, man.
Yeah. The contacts, though, I will say, I was fine with those contacts for the whole run of the series and for the first 3 films. And something happened on the last film, and I would take them out at night, and I really could not see much. I had vision, but it was blurry, and so they sent me to an ophthalmologist who said that your corneas have changed shape because you weren't getting enough oxygen in your eyes from the contacts. And I was thinking, well, I've got a huge multi-billion-dollar lawsuit here. And he said, well, the good news is it'll all go back to normal.
Oh.
Really? But it did, and you know, and now I can see you perfectly.
Hi, my name's Alex. 2 short things before I have my question. First off, you guys are the reasons I really had a relationship with my dad. The Next Generation was my dad's favorite Star Trek. Mine ended up being Deep Space Nine, no offense. But Star Trek is really how I had a bond with my dad. So thank you for that, especially since Father's Day is coming up.
Any other women in the audience bond with their fathers around Star Trek? Wow. That is awesome.
It really is.
Yeah, my whole dad's side of the family, my grandma, we're all Star Trek nerds. We all argue which one is the best. And then a second thing, thank you from my mom as an English teacher to you for reading Rainbow and everything that you do for literacy. I know someone already said it, but it's a serious thing. She talks about the low literacy levels a lot, and it's sad to see. And it's people like you, authors like you, who promote reading that change people's lives. My question is, Star Trek has been going since the 60s, and there are still series being produced today. How do you feel about the fact that Star Trek, from a fandom perspective, has been around for so long, has impacted so many generations?
She answered the question.
Well, first of all, let me just ask, what is Deep Space Nine?
I heard Levar directed a little bit on that.
What is it a cartoon? Was that?
It's live action.
Oh, okay. No, you know, in truth, and I've said this a million times, but I think Star Trek is the great American epic. It goes on and on and on and on. I mean, I don't know how many episodes total there are now, but there's got to be close to 1,000. And it's been going now for 55 years. You know, it is part of the fabric of our country now, Star Trek. And I feel great about that. I feel really, lucky and to have been a part of that whole enterprise, if you will.
Thank you guys.
Right here.
That's not what I said. I'm so glad you're here, really. To be serious.
Give it up for our Simon King.
Appreciate it.
Hi, my name's Jennifer, and I don't like hearing myself on the speaker. Just really briefly, I love Bob Wheeler, and I love reading Rainbow. My question for you, for Brent, my favorite Data episode is the one that had his daughter, the law.
The Offspring.
Yes, I love that. It was a beautiful story and so well acted, but I hate that they only used her in one episode. So if you were going to continue that story, how would you like that to play out?
You mean had she lived?
Yes, she should have, at least for 2 or 3 episodes, that's what I think.
Well, I'm sure in the next episode I would have grounded her. No, I don't know, because I don't know where that episode was really kind of perfect. And Jonathan directed that episode. That was the first time he ever directed anything, and he's since become an absolute, pro. One of the best TV directors out there.
If I'm not wrong, that directing career is what got him the nickname Two Takes Briggs.
2 takes breaks, they call it. That's right. And
Attention visitors. This is a reminder that backstage passes and tickets to an evening with the Hobbits must be redeemed in advance in the Celebrity Autograph Hall. Please redeem your tickets at the Special Events Redemption Desk in the Celebrity Autograph Hall as soon as possible.
all right, who took my tickets? Evening with the Hobbits. Come on. I love the Hobbits.
Jonathan directed The Offspring.
Yes.
And
Trying to
what
get me
was
back
the
on
experience
track.
like?
Yes.
I was like, where were we? That was where we were.
Jonathan directed The Offspring. But you know what's interesting? I don't know if you know this, that Hallie Todd, wonderful actress who played Mal, she's the real life daughter of I can't think of her name right now, but she played on the Dick Van Dyke Show. She played Millie Helper, the next door neighbor, and Hallie Todd was her daughter. Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't know that was Millie's daughter.
Millie's daughter.
From the Dick Van Dyke Show.
But not Jerry's daughter.
No.
Just Millie's
Just
daughter.
Millie's daughter.
Yeah, because they were really
They were-
married.
oh, really?
Yeah.
She was not a wedlock child.
Mother is married in real life to somebody else.
Not to Jerry.
Not to Jerry Helper.
Oh,
Jerry Helper.
Helper.
Yeah.
I get it now.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, I'm glad I sorted that out.
What the hell is he talking about?
But anyway, it was a lovely episode, but I have no idea. I'll write something. In fact,
Fan fiction 2 coming this fall.
well, fan fiction does kind of center on that story.
It really does.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Kirsten. I wanted to say something similar to the last one we took over here about helping bond with my dad. Something that we were able to do is watch Star Trek The Next Gen together, and it was something that was just really good for us. I kind of have a 2-part question. I was wondering if space travel was ever something that you would be interested in, like as a hypothetical, and if you were, like on the USS Enterprise, what jobs do you personally think we have?
So hypothetically, if space travel were a thing,
If space travel to that magnitude and that kind of like in that way, not just like the way we have it now.
yeah. So hypothetically speaking, I'd be in no danger.
Yeah.
Sounds like fun.
wouldn't really want to do it. I don't like heights. And matter of fact, I'm getting dizzy right now. This is a little too high. I don't even like to stand, actually, in my real life. I prefer sitting, and if I can lay down, that's best.
That's true.
I hope I'm not telling tales out of school, but the custom golf cart that allows you to recline on a chaise cost us a lot of money.
Well, I'm not going all the way from that building to here,
Fair.
sitting up.
I mean, you're not an animal. Right over here.
Not really.
I'm very glad you mentioned the night court role. My question is actually for Bob Wheeler.
Yes.
Will I ever see Disney World now, Daddy?
You do know you're not my child.
Can I be?
No. Not in a million years.
That was the answer. Yeah.
Right over here, Spider-Man.
I don't think we can thank you enough for reading Rainbow and the impact that it's had on all of our lives. But my question is, what's your personal favorite episode of Rainbow?
Oh my goodness, what's my personal favorite? That's a really tough one. I learned how to fly a plane for Ruth Lawthrow's Nation, learned how to scuba dive for Dive to the Coral Reef. Stood on the summit of Kilauea volcano during the mid-eruption. It was 4,000 feet away from me. A mile and a half high, molten lava. It was the best job I think I'll ever have. And one of my jobs is being chief engineer of the Starship Enterprise.
My family's been watching Star Trek since I can remember. I'm forgetting my question right now. Who was the first cast members that you played with when you first started Star Trek, for both of you?
I did my first scene with Jonathan and Marie.
I did my first scene with Jonathan and Will Wheaton. And I auditioned with the scene with Geordi.
Right.
But we didn't audition together.
No, we didn't.
But the scene was a scene between Data and Geordi. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. You did a great job. I loved everything you guys have done.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
We got about 10 minutes left. I think we can still get through a bunch of them. Go for it.
Oh, lovely. Mr. Burton, I don't know if you hear many people who come up who reference you being Daniel Scott and Christie, but I really enjoyed you in that, especially the episode where you're making friends with the blind woman and you're very kind to her.
Not just any blind woman. That
That's
blind
right.
woman was played by Judy Collins.
Amazing.
Amazing.
Amazing. And I just wondered, what point in your career were you at when you did that? And the other question is, what was making that series like for you?
I did Christie right after we finished Generations. My daughter was 3 weeks old when I asked my wife to move to a cabin in the Smoky Mountains.
Nice.
She said yes, and has never forgiven me.
Yeah, you paid for it ever since.
It was an awesome time. I mean, it's a beautiful place, the Smoky Mountains, and we were there for a good 8 months, and it's a time I'll always treasure.
Well, thank you so
Thank
much.
you, thank you.
So actually all of my questions have been asked, so I'm just gonna kind of try to think of something.
Simple.
Great. So I also grew up with reading Rainbow, and because of that I'm an author. And I had a bookstore and I'm a reading tutor, and my dad is what got me into reading Rainbow, and it's my dad and you are why I'm wearing yellow. And I actually bonded with my mom over Star Trek, not my dad. It's like the only thing we didn't argue about. So.
What's your father's name?
His name is Wilfred.
Wilfred. Happy Father's Day to Wilfred.
He passed away.
Happy Father's Day to Wilfred in heaven. Neither was Wilbur.
Sorry.
It's all
I have
good.
nothing to say sorry for.
I know that they have tried to do Reading Rainbow reboots, but it's not the same without you. And have you thought about going down that route again? Because now I have 3 kids.
I'm afraid you're going to have to content yourself with episodes that already exist and content on the Levar Burton Kids Skybrary app, which lives with Reading is Fundamental on their portal. I'm finished with that brand. It's a brand I will never own.
Yeah.
And as such, there's no reason for me to front it any longer. I still do the same thing that I've always done, just with a company that I own.
Well, that's awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
How do you feel about me hosting Reading Rainbow?
Only if you do the gold makeup.
Okay. It's not going to happen.
Hi, I'm Luann, and I want to say thank you to both of you. I love all of your bodies of work, and I get so excited when I go to see a show and it's like, oh, they're in this movie. I love it. I love it. But this question is for Levar. I always wondered with your visor, Geordi, how you kept it on, and what was the vision like?
You're going to have a hard time believing this, but I screwed the visor into my head to keep it on.
He did.
It's true. And through the visor, everybody was naked. Including David.
What do you mean, oh no?
As we all know, he is fully functional.
Apparently so.
Hello, my name is Corey, and I just wanted to say thank you guys so much for everything you've done, for being here this weekend. For my family and I, it's really huge because it's Father's Day weekend, and my dad passed a year and a half ago, and he loved Star Trek and Marine Corps. And for you, Mr. Burton, Roots and Reading Rainbow had a huge impact on my life. So my question is, at what point in y'all's life did you take a look at your body of work and go, wow, I really did have an impact on people?
Really, it's going to conventions that's clued us in, because we didn't, we were just, actors and performers, and we were just lucky guys who got these great jobs, and but to find out that there was actually ancillary benefits coming from the fans and the people who really it meant something to was so overwhelming. It's incredible.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right over here.
Hi, my name is Xander. And how was it getting back to work on the show Picard with the original Next Generation crew? Do you have fun behind the scenes stories to share?
Oh, Xander?
Right off the top of his head.
Just came to it.
Go to answer.
Well, Xander, I have to say, it's some of the most fun I've had in decades. Seriously. Being together again was truly awesome and an incredible gift. Because I think that we all believe that we would never have that opportunity. That shouldn't have said it, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely. No, we would just look at each other and go, this is crazy.
How great is this?
Yeah. And I think we all felt that way.
Absolutely.
Except Marina, who was, complaining as she usually does. No, I think we all had a fantastic time doing it.
Xander's wonderful question made me think of a follow-up. You are very well known to be very much like a family, the cast of this show.
Yeah.
And you've been at all these conventions and you see each other regularly, but being on those sets, playing those characters again, I would love to hear, because you can't tell us about the content of the show, but emotionally for you as performers, engaging with your beloved scene partners for the first time in whatever form Brent is taking, and the well-known form that Levar is taking. What was that emotional journey like for you? Was it something that you were able to anticipate, or did it hit you like a ton of bricks?
Did not know what the character arc would be over the course of episodes in which Geordi appears. I got the chance to see how everyone else had grown and changed, and I was really happy with the changes that had taken place in Geordi's life in terms of how we related to one another. Last time Geordi saw Data, he was leaping across the void to sacrifice himself. So, and the first time I see him, it's not him necessarily. So there was a lot going on for all of us, I think.
Well, I tell you what, and I felt this, I'm sure you did too. In a way, there was no difference. It was like time had ceased to exist, and we were just doing it. We had stopped doing the last film the day before, and we started doing this episode the next day. And we related to each other in the exact same way that we always did, to a person. We had the same dynamics. And, even to the point of, Dorn blowing his lines and us laughing ourselves sick because that was the last thing he did the last time we saw him. It's great.
Well, I think I speak for all of us. We want it now, please, Paramount. We want it now. Whatever you. Oh, go for it. Sorry, I'm sorry. I interrupted you. Please.
Before I go, I just want to say I like watching Star Trek with my dad, and he's a really big fan.
Well, thanks, Andrew.
That's a great reminder. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers in the audience. Give yourselves a hand.
Yes. Happy Father's Day, Brent.
Happy Father's Day, Levar.
I'm a huge fan of both of y'all, and not just Star Trek, but your career catalog outside. I got one question for both of you. Okay, so Mr. Burton, when Roots was going on, did you get to hang out on the other episodes in the Next Generation episodes with James Earl Jones and Lou Gossett Jr., people like that?
I did hang out on the set a little bit after I finished my filming on Roots, and just to watch Ben Marine and Max Sinclair and others work. It was really, Leslie Uggams, it was phenomenal. But by the way, I can't be here in Texas tomorrow. It's June 19th. Happy June 19th. I am here tomorrow. Yeah, but they won't be. I mean, we won't be here.
We won't be here.
We won't be here.
We'll be here.
We'll be here, but we won't be here. We'll be over there, or maybe over there.
We'll be there.
Somewhere.
Got it.
Yeah. Okay, my other question is for Mr. Spiner. I recently watched The Aviator, the one with Leonardo DiCaprio, and I think you have a small part in it, but it's actually really good. Do you have any particular memories about working with Scorsese or working with DiCaprio that you'd like to share?
Well, gosh, I could fill this whole hour with stories. I really could. It was a thrill to work with Martin Scorsese and Marty, I call him.
Mr. Scorsese, where would you like me to stand?
But no, it was, I worked with Leo, there, I did call him Leo, didn't I? Leo and Danny Houston was the other actor in the scene with me. Both tremendous actors, and
not so bad yourself.
The biggest thrill to me was to find out that Martin Scorsese, who is one of the greatest directors in the history of cinema, and maybe our greatest living director right now, directs just like every good director you've ever worked with. He would say, why don't we try it like this? And he said, Leo, let's do 15 or so takes this way. And literally, and then he'd say, okay, that's great. well, why don't we try it this way instead? Do 15 or so takes like this. And I mean, it was, film is very different than television because you have so much more time and so much more money. But I was playing a guy who I came from a company, TWA, I think.
I think that's right.
Yeah, who built this plane for Howard Hughes that Leonardo was playing. And I brought it in and it was covered with a cloth. And there was a moment where I had to reveal the plane by pulling the cloth off of it. I pulled the cloth off 20 different ways. And that's what Scorsese would say, okay, now do it faster. Now do it slow. Okay. Now do it just like you would do it. Okay. Now take it from the other end, and it just leaves it up to the editor, Thelma Schoonmaker, who was one of the great editors, to choose which one she's going to use. But it was thrilling. It was just great. And what I particularly loved about it is he's one of the biggest movie buffs in the world. I mean, he knows, he's a historian. He knows more about film than anybody. And I'm a huge film buff, and so I was able, between takes, to actually ask him questions about, I asked him a lot of questions about King of Comedy, which he directed, and about working with Jerry Lewis, and that's what I could take the whole hour telling you those stories. But it was a wonderful experience.
Thank you for answering my question. Sure, you're both awesome.
Thank you.
Okay, good news and bad news. The good news is this has been amazing, right? Yeah. The bad news is we got time for one more question, and I know we got some other folks in line, but you guys are going to be back at your tables, and folks will come up and see you.
These
Get questions.
Come by the table.
We're going right there after this.
We are.
I'll have a little thing to wrap us up that I promise will not take long, so that the trains that need to keep running on time, keep running on time.
Yep.
What do you got for us?
Levar, I'm sure you hear this a lot, but as a black man, I just want to say thank you for what you've done with Bruce and Reading Rainbow, and as Geordi the Forge, just what you brought to those roles and what they did for the culture. Yes, it does.
Representation matters. Thank you. Yes, it does. Thank you. Thank you. Now, thank you, Brent Spiker.
As a black man?
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, it is very popular in the black community.
Well, you know what they say. Inside of every Jew, there's a black man beating to get out.
Oh my God. Jens, I have one more question for you. A brief story, a version of which I've told you. The question is, now you have both portrayed great American heroes on screen. On screen in Levar's case, on stage in Brent's case, Dr. Martin Luther King, and John Adams in the new Broadway cast revival of 1776.
Right.
And I feel like Star Trek gives me license to say, we could always say, in these times that we live in now, at any point in American history.
Yes.
I love that you brought up what Levar said on The View about reading banned books. And for all of these people who love the fictional space adventures that you were a part of, what would you encourage young people of every age out there to do when it comes to speaking up, speaking out, looking out for the right things? Whether those roles influence the way that you think about that and the way that you talk to people about it, or just the way that you feel has helped empower you to get out the messages that are important to the two of you.
You want to handle it?
Well, I would let you go ahead.
Well, I would just suggest that if you have an opinion, if you have a point of view, let it be known, because silence is the same as saying I don't care. And if you don't care, then you deserve what happens to you.
I think the inspirational value of characters like Dr. King and John Adams, the examples they set, the standards for which they stood, are as valuable in this American moment as any that we've ever had.
No kidding. Yeah.
Well, one of the things that I love about this community is we always get these magnificent stories, and as many things as we have in common, all of these stories are unique, and I wanted to share a brief story of my own that is part of the reason that I do conventions in the first place. I grew up with an autistic younger brother here in Dallas. I'm from Garland, but anybody from Garland tells you they're from Dallas, because nobody knows where Garland is, unless they watch King of the Hill. Telling jokes now, there will be a little bit of a sad note that I'll prepare you for. I went off to acting school. My little brother and I didn't come to conventions like this because all of the crowds and all of the sensory overload, just a bit much. But while I was away at acting school, getting as pretentious as all get out, he started coming to these shows, and he started seeing our heroes from the various Star Trek shows, from Star Wars, from various different things. And I had no context for this until I came back to Texas. And I went to this con, my first con ever, and I got it immediately. And the thing that meant the most to me was the kindness and consideration and time and grace that the two of you and your castmates and people from so many other shows make available to these people for whom your work means so much. And I don't tell the story that much, but at this convention, the additional layer of context was that what had been diagnosed as an upper respiratory infection was by then a grapefruit-sized tumor on his trachea. And it was a matter of when rather than if I was going to not have this experience to share with him any longer. So as much as I thank the two of you, I want to thank all of you for being my surrogate siblings who are out there making these events so great and so wonderful. Thank you, everybody. Now, while we're thanking people, let's thank our American Sign Language interpreters once again for keep it going for a crew without whom these shows would not happen. Thank you for a wonderful experience telling you the secret that they wouldn't be on the show. Let's keep it going. Blow the roof off this place one more time for Brent.
Make sure you have your Hobbit tickets. Thank you. Thank you.
Make sure you got your Hobbit tickets. That was awesome.